The one situation that I wanted to talk about tonight with everybody is specifically about mortgages and foreclosures and what we have learned about them over the years, because it's quite an extensive subject for those of you that have been paying attention to it. So at times it can become real simple where folks like Winston can break it down, where we can just focus on what's really important. And then other times, we can take the time to kind of dig a little deeper and look at some of the real issues that we have here. So just to give a little background on myself, I came from the mortgage business from the heyday of it, had a lot of fun doing it, helping a lot of folks out in their individual situations. And in around 2006, 2007, I started investing in real estate. I bought 25 houses in 2007 personally. Not a good time in the market to do that. Things obviously changed. It was actually at the peak of the market that I invested in lots of real estate and put all of my money into it, into improving on these properties with the intent to turn around and sell them and have a lot of money left over at the end. And I think a lot of people had that kind of same plan long term. And what happened at the end of '07 changed that for everybody. I watched pretty close to $3.7 million in equity disappear, better than David Copperfield or Lance Burton. I just couldn't believe it. A lot of people couldn't believe it. It actually compelled me to spend the rest of my time, full time, just trying to get to the bottom of what really happened there. And it's nothing less than amazing what we've been able to discover. As simple as things can be on the surface, there's so many details that we can dig into about this stuff. And I think the most important situation that a homeowner that's facing foreclosure or looking at that as a potential outcome is the information. It all starts with information. And so over the years, we've been digging deeper and deeper, and we now have, after all these years of digging into this stuff, we have a solution that we can provide to support homeowners in their fight to keep their house. Now, as Winston mentioned, the responsibility is on you to be able to learn what all this stuff means and how to go about using it. And that's what makes him such a valuable teacher, is that he doesn't just give you information, there you go, do whatever you want with it. It's more of like, you need to understand this stuff. So, Federal Trustee Services is the company that we're here with. We've got our team in the back, so we'll be able to answer everybody's questions at the end, even if it's past 9 o'clock. The basis of what we do really has to do with information. The basis of our service is conducting an investigation into the originating loan documents, taking apart the public record, digging into places like the Securities and Exchange Commission and their database, which is quite extensive if anybody's ever gone in there looking. And what we do is we put together all the facts of the matter that we can identify. It's kind of important to know all that kind of stuff. So after we dig through all of that stuff, we actually have an in-house attorney that signs off on everything. And as you guys know, or may not know, an attorney is a certified witness of the state that they have their bar with. So actually they're a witness for the state. That's witness number one. The next thing that we do is actually take those facts and present them with a second witness to the banks and the other parties that are alleging to have a right to be able to make a move on your property. And so by now giving them the opportunity to respond to due process, giving them their opportunity to rebut the facts. They never do, and they're always in dishonor. We actually use an administrative process that most of you are familiar with to complete this process. So 3 steps: certifying their non-response and dishonor. One of the things that we include in with that as well is a standard qualified written request. Most people are familiar with that. However, it's everything else that we add to that that actually gives it some teeth. So once you have those 2 things taken care of, you have your information, your facts, your evidence all together. It's certified by a witness for the state. And now you've presented that to the other parties to give them an opportunity to respond, which when they fail to respond in a timely manner, that constitutes their acceptance and stipulation to agreement to those facts, especially when we have it worded as such in our documents. So when you have those 2 items, now it's a little bit stronger than maybe just sending a letter yourself to the bank and then ignoring it, we find that having these other witnesses in place that are witnesses for the state, now you've got the state of California or state of Washington versus the bank. So it's a little bit more powerful. And either way, everything that we do is in a supporting capacity so that when you go to utilize strategies like the ones that Winston has, that are very powerful, at least you're going to have just a little bit more to be able to stand on in case some of those other items come into question. Now, once we've taken care of those two things, the next thing that we deal with is the public records. You see, their ability to foreclose on the property stems from what's referred to as color of authority. So it's only because of the fact that there's still a document in existence on the public record that gives them the ability to move forward on. As void as it may be, completely invalid as it may be, it's still there on the public record. It hasn't been dealt with. And so we have a document that we utilize that basically puts you back in control over that deed of trust instrument. Changes the terms, the indentures of it as well. Makes it nice and simple. Instead of this long 22, 24-page document, we reduce it down to about two or three pages. And so that removes their color of authority. In addition, there's also appointments of successor trustee and assignments of the deed of trust. Notice of trustee sale that they may have filed on the public record. So we have a nice little stamp that we put on those that says void for fraud. We'll include that in on the public record. Either way, what we don't want to do is leave anything unrebutted. Whenever they put something there, counter right back with it, with our own counter offer of what we want to do with it, or conditional acceptance. The next step that's kind of important that we help out with is protecting your vested interest. You know, everybody that purchased a property, you had your down payment, your closing costs, taxes, insurance, improvements, renovations. Those all represent your vested interest that you have in the property. As a matter of fact, most homeowners can demonstrate those funds being representative in the windows, the doors, the floors, the paint, whatever they've done, in the actual fixtures of that property. And so what we do is we assist you with a fixture lien to lien up those properties, or the actual fixtures of the property, the real estate. How many people understand here that land and real estate are not the same thing? How many people think that land is real? Okay, so let's talk about the difference between land versus real estate real quick. I thought there was a step there. Land versus real estate. Now, if you take a look at your tax assessor statement that you get every year or every 6 months, depending on how often you get billed with it, you'll see that the land and the improvements are both assessed separately. How many have noticed that? Yeah. So the reason why they are assessed separately, they're two very separate things. If you were to take on your parcel of land or your property, and you were to dig out all the dirt, so there's just nothing but a big hole there, the land is actually still there. Because the land is merely a fixed position on the planet that you can't touch, you can't take it, nobody can take it from you. And so, what we want to talk about real quick here is where the root of land title comes from. So, back in the day, when there were just settlers all over this area, in all areas of the country, you had folks that were fighting over all kinds of different land. You know, they were killing each other, doing all kinds of real nasty business. And so, to end all of the fighting, the federal government entered into a treaty with different parties. You know, the Crown of England being one, and a lot of the Spanish and Mexican settlers, American Indians as well. And the international treaties that they entered into stipulated that the federal government was to have all the rights to settle all land claims with all these lands. And so all the claims prior to that settlement time were effectively null and void. And the way that they went about settling it was with land grants and land patents. So for every piece of land, there is only one document that would essentially constitute the root of that title, because everything previous to that is null and void, it just doesn't exist. And so, with every piece and parcel of land out there, we can, by doing some diligent research, we can locate a land grant or land patent or some sort of international treaty that would constitute that root of title. And depending on what you do with it, that can be a very powerful thing. If you can demonstrate that there's nobody else in there other than the state, of course, that effectively owns all property, like we just talked about. When you look at these documents that were signed, especially a land patent, it states that it describes the land, who the patentee is, the person that's the human, the sentient person, not the fictional, that property was to be granted to, states that they're to have and to hold it to their successors, heirs, and or assigns forever. And they all use that one magic little word in there, forever. And they're all signed by the President of the United States at that time. So, a lot of people like to think that that's a very powerful document. By itself, is it going to change the game in your fight for your house? Maybe, maybe not. Is it a good layer of protection to have in there when you consider that that document constitutes an offer that was made long ago? And when we talk about what contracts really are, it's offer and acceptance and consideration, of course. But so when we look at this offer that was made 150 years ago, and that you have the ability now as an assignee of that land, because of the grant deed or warranty deed that you acquired the property through, that you now have the ability to accept that offer that was made to you as an assignee, including to have and to hold forever. So, we have a document that we've put together that allows you to accept those protections, and along with a certified copy of that document. So these documents, they actually predate the county, so you won't find them in your county records. However, they are archived within the federal government, and we know exactly where to get them. So, kind of a cool little piece. It's kind of interesting. The name of our company alone is kind of throws a lot of people off. They see the logo, and even when we went out for dinner earlier, you get a lot of people that they turn their heads and go, "What the heck? What's going on?" Look at us like we're the police. But the truth is, the word federal itself means of the land. And so it's the reason why we try to focus so much on the land patent component, protecting your possessory rights to that land. If you combine that with the tenant agreement with the state, and you just have layered in all sorts of levels of protection, you're going to be a lot better off than if you didn't. That's what we think. How many people, let's move to another subject, how many people have ever heard of the company named Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems Incorporated, or MERS? Good, good. About half the room. So we'll just recap really quickly for those of you who have never heard of that company. This is a company that is labeled on the security instruments of over 62 million homes in this country. Roughly 80% or so of all the mortgages and deeds of trust that are out there on the public record. Now, what makes this interesting is that MERS is a company that really doesn't do a whole lot. They're about the equivalent to this reserve sign that's sitting on the table right there. Kind of funny, huh? At least they came up with a better name than reserve. So what MERS does merely is they are a placeholder, so that all sorts of other things can happen on the side, and that anybody can come back in the name of MERS later on to foreclose on the property or make an assignment of the interest in that deed of trust or mortgage. What's been interesting, though, is that over the last 18 months, judges have been deciding en masse that any mortgage or deed of trust that has that name on it is void and unenforceable.